education. Neil, thank you so much. Well, Hillary Clinton, we should say, is facing the media in a surprise news conference this morning, while you've got Donald Trump set to talk education in Cleveland any minute from now. Hello, everybody. I'm Cheryl Casoni, and I'm in for Trish Regan today, and welcome to the Intelligence Report. The candidates today barnstorming their way through a handful of critical battleground states. Once again, looking at live pictures from Cleveland, we are waiting on Donald Trump to speak at a charter school in Cleveland. He is expected to propose opportunity scholarships. This plan would be to use federal money as state grants to cover millions of children attending private or charter schools living in poverty. This is a shot across the bow to the all-powerful teachers unions who back Clinton. We're going to have much more on his plan coming up, and we will listen to him when he takes to that stage. Plus, you've got Hillary holding her first formal news conference in 277 days earlier today. But the 6 questions that she took, not exactly hard-hitting. Listen.
You've been criticized by the RNC for your demeanor last night, that you were too serious, that you didn't smile enough.
I had a very short window of time in that event last night to convey the seriousness with which I would approach the issues that concern our country. Donald Trump chose to talk about his deep admiration and support for Vladimir Putin. Maybe he did it with a smile, and I guess the RNC would have liked that.
Well, not a lot of people not liking how those questions were actually asked. We're going to talk about that later on. And also, there was not one question this morning on her emails, which was the focus of her time at the National Security Forum last night. She went on to say that she would defeat ISIS without, quote, committing American ground troops. Trump, meanwhile, said this. Listen.
The generals under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have not been successful.
Do you know more about ISIS than they do?
I think under the leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the generals have been reduced to rubble.
Okay, well, the other headline from the event was moderator Matt Lauer unfair to Clinton. Howie Kurtz is going to be here to weigh in on that coming up in just a moment. But first, I want to bring in my political panel, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. And welcome to both of you. And Ford, I want to start with you. You know, she was asked about her demeanor, but she switched it over to attacking Trump on his stance with Vladimir Putin, basically portraying them as friends. Was that effective?
Well, look, Trump had the better night last night, but neither of them had a good night. And with 3 weeks to go before the first presidential debate, both candidates have a lot to work on if they want to be the 45th president of the United States. I will say this. The reason why you know that Trump had a slightly better night is because, as you pointed out earlier, she gave her first press conference in 277 days, and much of that was to clarify some of the things she said.
You know, Leslie, when she had that news conference this morning, a lot of those questions were softballs. Yet last night, it seemed that the criticism against Matt Lauer was that he was giving Donald Trump a lot of softballs and special treatment. Who do you think came out on top last night?
Well, it's interesting how there's very different perspective. I felt that Hillary Clinton was stronger last night, and I felt that her comments were much more palatable. I would agree with you. It's a softball question to ask somebody about smiling, being on TV. I'll get that all the time. You know, you didn't smile enough. And it's like, but were you listening to what I said? And I don't honestly care if our future president is smiling or not, especially if they're talking about putting our men and women in harm's way. I think it's ridiculous that a reporter would ask that.
But Leslie, I got to say this. The going take last night was that Hillary Clinton was stronger on substance and Donald Trump was stronger on style. And you know darn well that when it comes to a lot of voters and their perception, style matters a lot. And the one thing is Clinton looked defensive and Trump looked confident. What I will say about Donald Trump is he needs to be a lot wiser with his words because he has very little experience, and what he's being judged on is the tone and tenor of what he says. And also sometimes he seems to overtalk it like he did with Putin. So both candidates have a lot to work on. And Hillary Clinton has to understand this is a popularity contest, not a college debate.
Well, let me play this for both of you, because obviously he's being criticized for his basically, let's just call it a love fest with Vladimir Putin. And this has been going on for several weeks, but it came up again in the commentary that we saw this morning. I want to play you this shot real quick and get your reaction on the other side.
I think when he calls me brilliant, I'll take the compliment, okay? He is really very much of a leader. I mean, you can say, oh, isn't that a terrible thing? He called. I mean, the man has very strong control over a country. Now, it's a very different system, and I don't happen to like the system. But certainly in that system, he's been a leader.
Ford, he's the leader of Russia.
That's the whole point. This whole diatribe about Putin is beyond me. Say one thing about Putin and move on. When you're sticking and talking about Putin, you're losing this debate. You had 24 minutes to make a lot of cases, and really Hillary Clinton gave you a very wide opening because her experience, which she touts as a winner, was actually hurting her in that debate when we went down to the email scandal, to her vote on the Iraq war. That's what he should have been talking about. It was a waste of time to talk about Putin, and I think it hurt him.
Leslie, what about his comments with regards to the generals? That's something else that has really gotten a lot of attention this morning, basically saying that under the leadership of Barack Obama, and this is direct quote, and Hillary Clinton, the generals have been reduced to rubble. A lot of our military leaders this morning are not happy with those comments.
Oh, I know. It amazes me that he does better with vets and military, because the vets and military members call into my show, and my radio show is carried on the American Armed Forces Radio Network. They're like, where are the people asking us about the polls? Because they really don't like what he has had to say. Specifically with regard to this, you know, I saw a guy the other day wearing a hat that said, America is great. And I think when you make comments like this and belittle those in command, such as generals, when we have the greatest military and the greatest nation in the world. And in addition, I think this also shows his lack of knowledge for how things work between the Pentagon, the military, and the commander-in-chief. Although the president is in a position to make many decisions solely, most all presidents, unless they've been generals like Washington and others themselves, they're going to take the advisement of their joint chiefs, the military and the Pentagon,
and
very
he has expressed that, to be fair. He has expressed that he would take under advisement those that would be under him, whether they would be new generals or not, is the other thing. I want to show a couple of polls here, which I find very interesting, Ford. I want you to take a look at these. If you look at the recent CNN Org poll, who would better handle terrorism, Donald Trump is at 51% and she's at 45%. But then you move over to foreign policy. Who would better handle foreign policy? She's leading 56% to 40%. Why the disparity in this, do you think, Ford?
Because it's divided up in the voter's mind. Foreign policy is not seen as fighting terrorism or maybe how to take it best to a battlefield enemy. And foreign policy for a lot of people is diplomacy and making nice. The point that she's driving home about Donald Trump is his temperament, and people are equating temperament with foreign policy. And when it comes to sort of holding back and not being honest, he's scoring much stronger on terrorism because she's saying that she's going to carry on Barack Obama's policies, and that's something that a lot of folks are not very happy about. So if Trump wants to be successful, he needs to make terrorism a bigger part of the foreign policy section of a lot of voters' minds.
Real quick before you go, Leslie, I got to get your reaction to this. Gary Johnson was on MSNBC this morning, and he made a bit of a faux pas. Listen to this.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo?
About
Aleppo.
And what is Aleppo?
You're kidding.
No.
Aleppo is in Syria. It's the epicenter of the refugee crisis.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Leslie, your thoughts on that?
Look, I have said if you're going to vote for Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, you are throwing your vote away. You're putting money on a horse that's going to lose. In addition, if you're going to vote for an individual that doesn't know what or where Aleppo is, and they're supposed to control foreign policy, terrorism, handling situations with ISIS, please do us a favor and stay home. I felt bad for him, honestly, to not know this.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, like I heard David Asman say earlier, when he's 90 years old, he's going to look back and look on that moment. He'll never forget that moment. I don't think we will either.
No.
Leslie Ford, we're going to see you in just a little bit. Thank you so much for standing by. We'll be back in just a few minutes. From Donald Trump, he's at the Cleveland Arts and Social Sciences Academy in Cleveland, Ohio. He's just outlined his education plan. This is a charter school, we should say, by the way, and he's expected to propose, and he just did actually, a $20 billion investment towards school choice for the 11 million children in this country that live in poverty, letting the states decide exactly how the money gets to be used. Now, the teachers' unions have already thrown the support behind Hillary Clinton. Both the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association endorsed her back in 2015. But Donald Trump seems to be hoping to accomplish something by speaking today and speaking to Americans, especially those parents that want to see the education of their children maybe change course. I want to bring back in Republican strategist Ford O'Connell, along with radio talk show host Leslie Marshall. Leslie, I think this is fascinating, what he's proposing, because he's saying give the states the power, targeting impoverished children specifically, and redirecting $20 billion. And he also made the point, I want to say this, $620 billion spent on K through 12 education, $620 billion, just $20 billion for these 11 million kids that are out there that need help. It's an interesting idea here, Leslie, you got to admit.
It's an interesting idea, but, here's the thing. One, I live in Los Angeles. LA Unified is one of the largest public school districts, if not the largest in the United States. I want to do a little fact checking here. We, although may spend so much money in the state of California on our public school system, the kids don't have enough money in the schools for proper supplies, et cetera. Secondly, what is the transportation if you have your school of choice, and who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, but Leslie, don't you have a big union
isn't this
problem
more
in
big
LA?
government?
You brought it up. You're talking about Los Angeles. You're talking about unions in Los Angeles. That's exactly what he's going after. This is something he probably got from Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, who successfully went after the teachers' unions and gained popular support in a blue state. I mean, you've got to admit, LA has a union problem with teachers. He's also talking about merit pay. If you're a good teacher, great. If you're not, you're gone. That's Donald Trump.
Let me say this, Cheryl.
That's to Leslie. That's to Leslie.
The problem here in Los Angeles and, quite frankly, throughout our state, but specifically here in Southern California, is not the unions. Even though I know the right and Donald Trump's jumping on that blame the unions bandwagon with education, quite frankly, it's that there's not enough money. And I really, want to fact check his numbers, because if you look at Germany and Italy and France, they provide not just K through 12, but free college as well.
Well, we're far from that, Ford. But he did bring up an interesting stat. Ford, he brought up here in New York City, we're spending more than $20,000 per child. I'm in New York City. I'm going to tell you that the schools here have a lot of problems. A kid took a gun to a school in Brooklyn today, first day of school. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with here and across the country. He's saying, here's an idea. Here's how we change it. What do you make of it?
Well, this is not a new idea. It actually was first put forward by Senator Lamar Alexander and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. In my opinion, this is great policy and also very smart politics, because the knock on Donald Trump is he doesn't care about anyone other than himself, and he's trying to actually target the poorest among us and try to make them understand that the primary road out of poverty runs by the schoolhouse. I want to give you a leg up, not a handout, and I think this is brilliant politics. What it's going to wind up doing, if he hammers this home properly, is it's going to put Hillary Clinton in a bind with the teachers' unions, because it's going to show that her true allegiance is the teachers' union and not the consumer, the student who's hurting. We may spend a lot more money. We can argue, Leslie, about how much more money there is out there, but until you break up this unholy arrangement that the teachers' unions have over benefits and other items, we're never going to fix our school system. And you can tell me everything about the public school system being great, but it's not serving the poorest in society because they're not moving up the ladder.
Leslie, respond to that.
Oh, I agree that, we have a problem with it, and we have, I think, for, pretty much since the inception of our nation, that, the more money you have, the more privileged you are, the better education you have, the better access to health care you have. But now, Ford, those sound like Democratic talking points. With regard to education, you have to look at the facts again. He's talking about federal money. A, where's that federal money coming from? B, he is the Republican nominee, and one of the first things Republicans take a hatchet to is funding for education. Okay. And
let me say this. Wait a minute. When have Democrats ever cared about how much something costs? You guys have never cared about what anything costs. That's why we have Obamacare, okay? You guys lie about this left, right, and center. He's rechanneling existing money. Now, do I think that this could wind up being more expensive than he's touting? I absolutely do. But you guys don't want to change the current status quo, and that's not helping students.
This is a great discussion. Unfortunately, we're out of time. It is a fascinating topic, though, guys. Leslie Ford, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We're going to be right back with more Intel. Stay